everyone, today I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of different ways of buying or selling books, depending on which side of that coin you're on. And I think this is interesting whether you're an author that's thinking about ways that you want to sell your books and what you might want to focus on and how you want to direct your customers, or if you're somebody that buys books and you like to think about your purchases and make sure that the author is benefiting as much as possible. And really it kind of depends what you mean by benefiting and whether you want them to get the largest amount of money or whether you want them to sort of benefit in terms of discoverability and other people finding those books. So I'm going to have a talk about the different ways that you can buy books, so direct or through a bookshop or via an online retailer, and what the pros and cons of each of those are from the perspective of an author, from me, from my experience, because I just think that this is an interesting thing to talk about. So to start with, direct sales. So if you are buying books directly from an author, whether that's on their website or whether that's at an event such as a book signing or a multi-author event or some kind of local craft fair, makers market, whatever it might be, you are physically buying the book from the author. Now, the biggest positive for the author is that that's likely to be the most financially beneficial way for you to buy the book from them. And that's because those books that you're buying from them directly, they have bought those books at cost and they aren't sharing that royalty with anyone else. So they're not sharing it with a supplier, a shop, whoever. They are keeping the full profit from that sale. So therefore that's likely to be the highest profit way of supporting that author. There is a slight caveat to that, because if you're buying from the author's website, there's obviously costs associated to that. So I pay for hosting, I pay for my URLs, all of those kinds of things. Also, there is a cost associated to postage and packaging. I charge for postage. I can't afford not to. For a long time, I did absorb that cost, and when you run the numbers, I really can't afford, and I'm sorry that that's the case. I can't compete with those big retailers who are able to absorb that cost. And I would like to make a video in the future actually about kind of not underselling yourself and not always like taking the financial hit and discounting and all that kind of thing. Let me know if you would be interested in that, because it's definitely something I used to do, but now I recognise that as a small business I really can't absorb costs just to be competitive. I mean, really, I guess this is on topic with the video, that if somebody would like to benefit from free postage, they can get my books from those places. If somebody is buying from me, they're getting the personal touch, they're getting a signed book, I put a bookmark in, I wrap the book up, it's that kind of direct link and sort of personal touch that I don't think really that there is an issue in paying for postage for that, if that's the service you would like to receive and you would like to support the author directly. But other people may feel differently, but there we are. Personally, I charge postage, but if somebody isn't charging postage, then they are absorbing that cost, so that has an implication there for how much money they're making from the book. If they are selling at some kind of event, the likelihood is that they have paid to be there. And depending on how much they sell will depend on their margin for the day. So if they have paid £20, let's say, just an arbitrary figure, for a table at that event, then they need to sell enough to cover the table fee, also their fuel, all the costs of being there on the day. So potentially, if they don't sell very much, or if their website fees are high or their postage fees are high, all those things, then it may not be the most financially beneficial way to support them. Ultimately, if you want that personal service and if you would like that likelihood of benefiting them financially in the biggest way, then buying direct is going to be the best option. I don't really think there's a downside. I suppose the downside for the customer is if the author is charging postage, because you can buy books through avenues where you don't have to pay postage. So if you would like to not pay postage, then choose a different way of buying the book. And as I say, I always think that it just really depends on what the customer prefers, and that all these different avenues are open so that a customer can buy a book how they want to, with the service that they want. You know, the book is available so that you can make the choice, and a sale's a sale. So yeah, that is direct sales in a slightly rambly way. I hope that made sense. The next way that I wanted to talk about of buying or selling a book is through bookshops. So where you are literally physically walking into a shop and buying a book. So I'm not talking about the online side of things right now, just physically going to a brick and mortar shop and buying a book. And there's a little bit of variability depending on how the book was specifically published. And I'm talking from the perspective in this video as an indie author. I have not traditionally published a book. So for traditionally published authors, it's going to be a little bit different, but broadly similar. You know, there are going to be differences in how many people are taking a percentage of the royalty, and also in terms of the deals made with different retailers, but overall it's largely going to be similar in terms of the pros and cons. But as an indie author, there are two different ways I might be supplying a bookshop. So I might be supplying them myself from stock that I have at home that I've bought at cost, or I might be using a print-on-demand service, so they are supplying the bookshop. In the instance of the print-on-demand service, then there's a kind of flat royalty wherever they sell the book. So whether it's in a bookshop or whether it's online, by and large, it's going to be a similar royalty rate. So that does make a bit of a difference with my print-on-demand books. But if I have supplied the bookshop myself, then I will have made a deal with that bookshop about what wholesale discount they get to keep from the book. So generally it's going to be around 40%. So the shop is keeping 40% of the list price. I'm keeping 60%, but I am paying my costs out of that. So because of that, because they are taking a share, obviously financially this is probably less beneficial than direct sales, as I say, with the caveat of depending on the costs of those direct sales. In the bookshop scenario, however, it is supporting a bookshop, which as authors and as readers, authors are, I mean, I can't think of an author that is not a reader. We love books too, and we love bookshops, and we want to support them as well. So that is a massive positive, being able to support, you know, local commerce, supporting a local business, particularly if it's an independent bookshop. So I don't think that an author is going to be sad about the fact that there is a portion of the money going to the shop. The other thing is that if that shop is managing to sell copies of your book, then they're going to want to buy more books from you, and it helps to encourage them to buy in more stock. If they have more stock, the stock is going to be on the shelves. Customers that come into the bookshop are going to come across your books, and they may buy them too. And so it really helps in discoverability, because for my direct sales, I'm reaching my online audience when we're talking about website sales. And in terms of in-person events, it's just the audience of wherever I am. So being able to have approach a shop's audience is really beneficial. There may be somebody who will never come across me in any other context, but they happen to have walked into that shop and spotted my book. So if you have chosen to buy from a bookshop, well, as I say, that supports the bookshop. It also encourages the bookshop to buy more books from me as the publisher and the author, and that helps other people to find my books. So there is a real positive there. And as I say, the negative is that potentially I may not be making quite as much money from the sale as if you bought it directly, and the book isn't going to be signed and all of those kinds of things. But yeah, supporting through a bookshop is a really lovely way to buy a book. If you do want to do that, I list on my website the different shops where my books are available that I know of. They may be available elsewhere, but also you can request my books. So if you go into your favourite shop and say, I'd really like this, they can order it from me. So that's still a possibility if you would like to support your local bookshop and support the author, you can ask them to order it in, and yeah, that's doable as well. So that's kind of bookshops covered. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is online sales. So Amazon, or I don't know, bookshop.org, Waterstones online, the kind of, yeah, online thing. But really broadly, mostly I'm going to be talking about Amazon. So for me, in my experience, this is where I am making the least money, and there are instances where I make a loss. That is less the case now because I buy my books in bigger quantities. I've also made some adjustments to my Amazon account that have meant that I am making profit where I wasn't before. It could get really long and boring if I go into the minutiae of that, but essentially I'm generally making pennies, and if there is the odd occasion where I might be making a very small loss, I'm talking a loss of pennies, but it is a loss all the same. So you might wonder why I even bother if that's the case, if sometimes through Amazon I am not making any money, in fact it is costing me. Well, one reason is discoverability again. I come into contact with people in a very specific area of the country when I'm doing events, and a lot of the shops that I work with, you know, they're in very specific areas, and they are generally people that or organisations that I have some kind of relationship with. So there's a whole country out there, there's a whole world out there that I would love to be able to access, and I can only do that online. So it means that people can find my books that way. It might be that they buy a book, and yes, I may have lost a couple of pennies in them doing that, but they may then find my other books and buy the others from me directly, or they might book me for a school visit, or there might be some kind of other interaction that then leads to more. Equally, if they leave a review, that's really, really helpful, because buying the book and leaving a review, both of those things feed into the algorithm. So the more people that buy the book, the more that Amazon will suggest it, because Amazon wants to sell things, and if that thing is selling well, they're going to suggest it. They also the algorithm learns what kind of customer buys that book. So if they find another person that fits a similar kind of buying history, then they may suggest that particular book. So, and if you're running ads and things as well, those are going to get fed to those people that fit the same kind of demographic. So if you are buying a book on Amazon, that is telling Amazon some information about the kind of person that likes that book. And if you leave a review, that's also helping for Amazon to push that book a little bit more. But also it tells customers, A, that they can trust the book, and I think with indie authors that's really helpful. If people can see that the book has had really positive reviews and lots of reviews, you know, that gives them a bit of confidence in the product, but also it tells them whether they'll like it or not, because they can read into what's said in the reviews and go, oh, that sounds just like my kind of thing. So it really, really helps. And again, by doing that, you are helping other customers to find the book. On top of all of that, because I personally use a fulfilled by Amazon service, what that means is I have sent books to Amazon. They are in Amazon's warehouse, and you know, I want those to sell. If they don't sell, I get charged for storage. I also get charged if Amazon return them to me after a year. So I want them to sell. So I have no issue. If you like Amazon, you like the convenience, you have Prime, you want the free delivery, absolutely wonderful. I would appreciate if somebody who buys on Amazon leaves a review, but you know, if they don't, they don't. It still feeds into the algorithm. So I have no issue with somebody buying from Amazon. It does have benefits, not so much financially, but it does have bigger benefits in terms of discoverability and those kinds of things. For other online retailers, again, what's going to happen is that sale is made on whatever it is, bookshop.org or Waterstones or whatever. And those books are then, they go through a middleman, they go through a company called Gardeners. So I send the book to Gardeners, who send that on to the retailer. Actually, often in the case of bookshops, if it's not one I supply directly, again, that's how that's going to work. So because you've got that supplier in the middle, not only is the shop taking a part of the royalty, but so is that supplier in the middle. So often when that's the case, when it's not a shop that I have supplied directly from my own stock, then my royalty is going to be quite small. However, again, you are supporting whatever business it is that you're buying through, and you are helping that business to know that it's worth buying books from me. And yes, if the royalty is smaller, I need to sell more volume. But if what you're telling them is to buy more volume, then great. So I hope that all of that kind of makes sense. I think I've covered all of the ways that you can buy books. No, I have not. I've not talked about libraries. Let's just do a little add-on section for libraries here. If you would like to just get my book from the library and you're concerned about, well, you know, I'm not going to pay for the book because it's from the library, I'm just borrowing it, so there's no financial benefit to the author. Yes, there is. Number one, the library may have bought it from me. They don't always. Sometimes I or somebody else have donated the book, but sometimes the library have bought that book, and so therefore there was a sale in the first place. But also there's something called PLR, which is where there is basically a pot of money that is for all of the library loans, and at the end of the year they figure out all of the different books that have been borrowed. They take a sample to do this, so it's not like every book that's been borrowed, but they have a look at the books that have been loaned out in libraries over the year, and let's say 100 people have read Milk, then I will get whatever percentage of the number of loans in the country that have been made that year. So if it's, I don't know, 1 billion, then I get whatever percentage that is of the pot, right? So because I am signed up to PLR, and if you're an author and you're not signed up to PLR in the UK, then do that. You get a little bit of an income every year from the books that have been read in the library. So again, I have no problem with people reading books from the library. Again, it supports libraries. And as an author, like most authors will have grown up going to the library and hiding in there and reading all the books. And again, somebody who reads a book in a library might go, I love that. And then the next thing they're, you know, buying other books on my website, or buying their own copy to have, or buying it as a gift for somebody because, you know, they really loved it. They might book me for a school visit. They might follow me on social media and all those things. So again, there is sort of a potential bigger picture in terms of sort of other revenue for me. But yeah, you may not know that actually authors do make a little bit of money from books that are read at the library. If you want to get my book from the library and they don't have it in their catalogue, you can request it. Sometimes there is a charge, but it's like 50p. So yeah, you can request it and then they will buy it in, and so then you can read it. And then because they've bought it in, other people in your library may like to read that book too, and it will be listed, it will be on the shelf with all the sort of newly in books, so it will get a bit of promo. Equally, you can request ebooks and audiobooks, and my books are available in those ways too, so it might already be available, or again, you might have to request it, and again, I will receive a small royalty from those as well. The overarching message of all of this is whatever you prefer. As authors, we are consumers of books too. I buy books secondhand. I buy them from charity shops. I go to the library. Like, my reading habit, I cannot afford to buy every book new, but I try, particularly when it's an indie author and I know they're running a small business, I will try to support them in, you know, by buying a new copy, probably direct from them. And also then you get a signed book and it's nice. But yeah, you know, we get it. We buy books too, and we don't always buy them brand new direct from the author. So our books are available in all those avenues because we want the customer to be able to get the book where they like it, for it to be available to lots of people who don't actually know us or come across us online or whatever it might be. So although there are pros and cons for all of those things, my financial, my royalties from you know, online sales and from libraries are going to be the smallest, and then next bookshop, and then next direct sales. And the sort of pros and cons, I feel, for example, with something like Amazon, that because there are so many books, although it does help the algorithm, it's still kind of shouting into the darkness a little bit. But that doesn't mean to say that I'm not grateful and it doesn't help, because it does, but probably in a lesser way than going into a bookshop, for example. But ultimately, if that's the way you want to buy it that way. we wouldn't make it available if we didn't like it. So you may find that certain authors prefer a certain avenue. I know an author that pushes all their sales through Waterstones as much as they can, and that's the one that they push. I know authors who always try and make the sales, promote their direct sales. I generally do promote my direct sales, but I will also sometimes share Amazon links, and I will always share the people who stock my books and try and give them some promotion too. So you can reach out to an author and ask what they prefer, and if you are an author, have a think about how you feel. You might ethically object to certain retailers and therefore choose not to sell through them, or to suggest customers buy through that particular avenue. So yeah, overall, as I say, the message is buy my books. That's not the message. The message is, if you want to buy a book, buy it however you'd like to as the customer, and it's all good, basically, and there's always going to be a benefit for the author. I hope that was interesting. I hope it was some food for thought if there was stuff in there that you didn't know. So yeah, please comment below if you've got anything to add to this. Please hit like if you enjoyed it. And if you would like more videos like this one, then do subscribe if you haven't already. Did I say that already? I don't think I did. But anyway, there'll be another video next week.